All right, guys, welcome back to the 2022 CEO Sense Summit. I am ShaCannon, the fractional COO, that's Chief Operating Officer. And what I do is I support small business CEOs in making sense of their business so that they can create and fund their freedom, okay? Create and fund their freedom. And I lead by example. My freedom looks like living and working my business from anywhere in the world. I started this journey in Belize, lived in Mexico for 3 years, and now I am currently in the tango and beef capital of the world, Buenos Aires, Argentina, okay? And so the key things that you need for actions and transformation in your business, that's what this summit is all about, y'all. So last year, let me remind you, I did too much work last year not to remind you of this every chance I get. So last year, we did 50 sessions of value, 50 sessions of value. One day I taught you about your CEO life design because I want you to have freedom funded by your business, okay? Then I went into what I call the 4 M's of operations. It's all around your resources, how to manifest them, how to manage them, how to monitor them, and how to maximize them. So that was last year, right? But this year, oh yeah, by the way, are you a VIP this year? Because if so, you get all of last year's stuff, just to tell you. Okay, now this year, we're doing what I call Super September. Super September. When I tell you it's been super, we have done a challenge a week for 5 weeks, okay? We did a Get More Done challenge where I taught you how to manage yourself and your time. We did a Get More Money challenge where I taught you how to fill that time with money-making activities. We did a Get More Reach challenge about your content. Get More Momentum challenge about knowing your numbers and going forward faster. And last week, we did the Get More Digital challenge where we helped you to use digital tools to close the divide between you being a small business and a bigger business, right? And so it all ends with this summit that you have been enjoying for 3 days now, okay? And what we're doing is day 1 was about business, managing your business growth. Day 2 was about managing your business tech. Today is about managing people, right? Y'all need people, can't scale without people. And then we're gonna go into managing you and then managing scale for the rest of the week. So welcome to day 3, the theme, managing people. Guess who I have with me? I have Miss Tequila Shabazz. Tequila, why should you know her? Because she owns this wonderful business called Key Virtual Support Solutions. Do you understand me? Let me tell you, she's doing big things with this agency is what it is, right? And I asked her to join us because you cannot have scale and you cannot have the growth of your revenue goals without a team, okay? And us small business owners, we out here in these small business streets all wrong with team, okay? So I needed my girl Tequila to come in here and get y'all right because I need y'all to understand. A lot of y'all are hiring VAs. You don't quite know what you're doing, what you should be doing. And so she's gonna help us because she's an expert in all of that, sweetie. So Tequila, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me. I am so happy to be here to discuss one of my favorite topics. Yes. So let's get into this.
I know. See, y'all, that's my girl. Let's get into this. And what do I say? I say, let's dive in. So let's do it, okay? So Tequila, let's start with the basics, right? What is a virtual assistant and what should these small business owners be expecting from them?
That's a really great question because I think that there's just a huge misconception of what a virtual assistant is. And I'm going to be real sweet, short, and to the point. A virtual assistant is exactly what it says. It is someone that assists you virtually. So it is a remote worker. And that can mean someone that supports you at the very basic level to a very advanced managerial level, right?
Right, a fractional COO that has more than one CEO and works from Argentina, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, that's it. So a virtual assistant can go by many names, just like you said. You consider yourself a fractional CEO. When I started out and it was just me before I built a team of over 100 people, then it was, I was an executive assistant and your sales guru. I had a lot of different names, but I never classified myself as a virtual assistant because there's just a lot of misconceptions that go with this idea of virtual assistants. Overseas, cheap, $3, $5 an hour, and low-skilled workers. That's just not true. So the first expectation or mind shift is to get out of your mind what you think you know a virtual assistant is, and understand that a virtual assistant is truly just someone that works remotely assisting you in what it is that you need assistance with.
Thank you for that clarification. I needed my folks to know that, right? Every VA is not built the same. So you need to be trying to figure out what it is you need and who exactly that is to fill that role, because they are not built the same. So now that we know what it is, right? Can you give us the secret sauce to hiring who we actually need?
Well, let's go back. Let's go back, because you said what are the expectations?
True.
Right? Did we talk, and I want to talk about this expectations that you should have. And I said the first expectation is getting out of your head what you think you know a virtual assistant is. I just told you what it is. So the expectations that you would have would be very simple. It is whatever task it is that you want them to do or perform, be very clear about that before you even enter an arrangement with this individual, right? So a lot of people, they'll hire a VA because they're drowning in work, but they have not prioritized their task. I heard you earlier say, you know, how do you get to, you know, how do you do money driven activities, right? So it's the same idea. Before you enter into an agreement with anyone that you hire, it's a reason why HR experts put together job descriptions, what kind of skills you need and what kind of systems you should know or software you should know. Be very clear on what it is that you need. And that is by prioritizing your task based on what's going to generate revenue or what's going to free up the time so that you can generate revenue, whether they're generate revenue for you or freeing up your time to generate revenue. Be very clear on what those tasks are. And when you're clear on what you want, it's very easy to set those expectations up in the beginning.
Yes.
Right? Not, okay, I got you, I'm just throwing stuff at you. And then in the middle of it, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You never set up those expectations around communication, around tasks, around deadlines in the beginning. So what you can expect is exactly what you set up in the beginning.
Woo. Woo. I feel like some toes got stepped on. I feel bad. But that was a whole word, right? That was a whole word, and we needed to hear.
And being in operations, a lot of people don't set those. It's just like, I need somebody to do this, and this is how much I want to pay them. First of all, what you want them to do is not clear, and you can't set a budget until you know what it is that you're asking them to do.
Exactly.
Right.
You don't know what skill set you need until you know what
that's right.
Them to do, right.
That's right.
So yeah. See that right there. Yeah. So yeah, what is that secret sauce to hiring?
The secret sauce to hiring, everybody's going to do something different. With us, we're hiring every single month. So I'm consistently hiring, obviously, because I have a staffing agency and small businesses are coming to me, and I've already done that preliminary work that a lot of us miss, right? So I'll say this. It is critical. These are some of the preliminary things that you should have in place. Don't wait till you're drowning, because most people that are drowning, drown. You understand? That's the truth. Like I can't come in and save you. You're going to take me down and drown me as well. Right? That's just the philosophy or the psychology around that whole thing. If you're panicked, if you're in a panic mode and I come in to help you, guess what? You're going to put all of that on. You're going to project all of that onto me. So it is I can't stress it enough to be proactive, and especially in this area, right? So I'm just going to give you the secret sauces as to what we do, preliminary work before we actually even begin to place. So the very first thing is you want to make sure that you have some sort of skills assessment, right? So what are the basic things that a person is going to need to know, regardless of what position they land in, if they come into your company, right? What are some things that you want them to know? Like, everybody uses Gmail, so everybody uses G Suite, so they should know how to do it regardless of the role that they're taking on. And this is specifically for employees. Let me be very clear, right? We do it because of the type of business that we run, but you have to be very careful when you're talking about contractors, because you typically hire a contractor like yourself. A person ain't gonna they're not hiring you and say, here, take this test. You ain't gonna take it.
No.
You're not taking it. But sometimes you will have some administrative contractors that will adhere to some sort of test taking. But for us, I'm just saying, and those who are hiring employees, you should definitely have some sort of skills and personality assessment that you do. And if it's not an actual test, it should be built into your interview process. And in your interview process, you should have scenario-based questions, not just what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, but give real life scenarios that you face day to day in your business and ask how an individual would handle that. So if a person comes to me and they say they have experience in sales, then guess what? I'm going to have them pitch me on the spot right then and there. You say that this is what you do. If you say you do customer service, then I'm going to throw a conflict out to you and ask, how would you handle this? Right? If you say that you are meticulous with detail, then I'm going to put something in front of you and ask me, what is it? What are the most pertinent details in this document that we should know? So scenario-based, practicum-based questioning and testing on the spot or written, right? I'm big into group interviews. And you know who else is big? I just read this in ink. I didn't even know this, but Apple is too. And that's one of the top companies to work for, and they get some of the top talent. They're big because now you know how an individual acts in a social setting. How do they stand out in a group? You know, how do they remember the people in the room? And one of the questions I ask is, if I have 10 people in this group interview, who are the top 3 people you would hire? I assess their decision-making skills. Are they nervous? Do they fold up, right? Are these extroverts, introverts? Does it align with their personality and who they say they are? Because people can tell you all day.
Yep.
And I learned that very, very, very early on the 4th hire. And that's when I had to put into place some preliminary testing and things like that. And it's one of the things that our clients absolutely love, because we do all of that work that typically on average takes a small business owner 3 months to do, because they got longer because they got all of these other things. We already have a system in place where we have people testing, interviewing around the clock. So the people that come in have already been tested, assessed for their personality assessed. They've gone through a couple of interviews. We do background checks. And then another thing is having an orientation session so that you can establish company culture and how you do things. Most people don't have an onboarding or in training. They just throw people in into the fire without properly acclimating them into the culture. And you will notice that those people fall off a lot quicker versus those who had an opportunity to actually go through some sort of training and bonding with the company and understanding the mission, the vision, the purpose, the values. So again, just to reiterate, my secret sauces have some sort of skills and personality assessment, whether through interview or written beforehand. I strongly encourage, outside of just an interview, a personal interview, a group interview, because people act differently when they're by themselves versus groups. And if this is if you're like me, where you may have someone that's like, I need this person to be able to facilitate meetings, you know how they responded when they were in a group. Were they extroverted, introverted? So have group interviews. It just tells you something different about the individual, and make sure that your question is scenario based. And then orientation sessions are critical. That's my secret sauce to hiring the right people. And our retention rate is very high.
I like all of that. And it's so funny because sometimes I have to hire, and I know just enough about a bunch of stuff to be dangerous, right? And so I remember, hiring or interviewing a lady, and I was asking her about project management, and she said she did project management all the time. And so, I was like, oh, okay, that's great. Can you tell me, how you use, like, you know, in the project management system, how do you use like the tags versus the not the tags, I'm sorry, the phases versus the what did I ask her? The phases versus projects in project management system. Like, how are you using the columns versus the boards? How, you know what I'm saying? And she couldn't answer me. Oh, okay. And then there was another person, reason why I thought about tags, because I asked them, they could do emails, right? And I said, well, can you do the automations? And they were like, yes, I can do email automations, right? And I said, okay, great. How do you use lists versus tags? Couldn't answer. Why? Because you're just used to doing the email. You don't actually do automation. So you don't know about how to segment and all the kind of stuff. So yeah, all of that. So even though I haven't done like assessments that would be like a test, I have asked those questions that if you know what you're doing, you can answer this question without
you can
problem,
answer
right?
this question. Absolutely. And that's and that's exactly what I mean with, you know, that difference between an employee and contractor is certain things that you may not be able to do. So what you just, the example that you just gave is an assessment. It's scenario-based questioning.
Yes.
And if you do what you say you do, then you can answer this. But people think, oh, I can do project management. I've managed some projects. I've organized some things. But have you done it at a high level where you have to use tools such as ClickUp, Airtable? You know what I mean? And how, like you said, now let's get into these features.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
okay.
They can't.
So no, they cannot, is what I have found. So, okay, so my small business owners, right? They're hiring these VAs, and most often they are outside the country, right? So is there something different that they should be doing when hiring domestic people from the United States and international VAs?
I think there's, you know what, I think that there's a lot of myths, and this is one of those questions that it just really depends on the type of business that you have, right? Because sometimes, you know, culture does matter, right? Let's take where it, say I had a prospect where she did development in the Maryland area, right? And she was, she advocated a lot around the history of redlining with African Americans in this country. Like, that's a very specific thing that maybe someone, especially for the role that she was looking for, someone that lives in, you know, Jamaica may not be able to answer, or it'll take them a little bit longer to you know, understand or learn what it is that she has, unless they understand history. They understand African-American history, right? Yeah. So there are times where that stuff matters, but for the most part, people are coming in and they want help with administration, they want help with operations, they want help with sales, customer service, or some technology. And I found that it doesn't matter, right? And I'm gonna tell you what people make matter though. And I'm gonna tell you how there is the same thing that you're concerned about internationally can be the same concern that you have domestically with those people. Look at where you are, right? I don't know what the time zone difference is though, where you are. I don't know if it's a big time zone difference.
It's like just 1 hour earlier than Eastern time.
Okay, so that's not big, but then you have people in the Philippines that are 12 hours. Yep. You have people in different countries in Africa that are 6 hours, right? Now, if somebody is new to this, then that may be difficult for them to, you know, adjust to. But somebody who's been doing this for a while and they're in the Philippines, trust and believe, they show up earlier than the people that stateside for me, you know? So I want to just, it's 5 things. It's like 5 kind of common myths, time zone being the top one. Well, I don't want nobody that's 12 hours. Like, if they're doing social media for you, why does it matter?
Exactly.
The time zone, right? Like, that doesn't matter. That's work that is handled on their own time. Those are deadline driven things, and they're going to show up to your meeting, right? Another thing to think about is, I'm like, we're from the States where there is 24/7 shifts, meaning a first shift, a second shift, a third shift, an overnight shift.
Yep.
So that's how you have to look at it. What makes you think that your grandma now and your granddaddy now was able to work that overnight shift, but people overseas, just because it's midnight there and it's, you know, 8 o'clock here or whatever time, that they can't do their job effectively. In your head, because you usually sleep at that time, you thinking that they should be asleep at that time and they're not going to be able to keep up. So I just think that there needs to be kind of a shift when it comes to time zones. That's the first thing. Okay. The second thing is language. Now, yes, you don't, if you have somebody answering phones for you, I'm not big, even though some major companies will hire people from countries where the accents are very strong and you can barely understand. I personally, when I'm hiring for customer service roles, I don't hire people for those roles with very strong accents. Now, customer service doesn't necessarily always mean phone. It also means web chat. It means email, so there are things where you don't necessarily have to speak, but their written communication is excellent, right? Because let's face it, English is a very common language around the world. Around the world, it's a common language. Exactly. It's the language of business. So most people overseas are learning that. It's only in America that we that's arrogant that we learn what is required that you learn. It's other countries that's like, no, you got to learn 3 languages, right? And English is usually one of those languages. So depending on what it is that you need, language may or may not be a barrier, but that's huge. I also say that language could be a barrier for somebody that's right here in the States. Did we forget that this is the melting pot and immigrants live here?
I'm from Alabama. The way I cut words off sometimes, and let me just
look, for real. That's real. Like somebody from down south that got deep south, you may not understand what they're talking about. Somebody from really rooted in the East Coast, you may not understand what they're talking about. And then also, let's not forget that people from other countries come and move here all the time. So when you say you want somebody from the US, okay, here's somebody from the US. Well, are they from the US? They got a Spanish accent. Well, you do know that Spanish people live here, right? So that's another big misconception is language barrier. So you have to ask yourself, what is the job and how does language play a part? Because written communication may be more important than verbal communication. Because I can understand somebody that may have a heavy accent, but everybody ain't like me. I have a trained ear for that. So it may not be a big deal for me. Third is cultural differences. And what I mean by that is the way that they do things in the Caribbean, even the way that they work is completely different from how we work here, right? So that may be an issue, but depending on what it is that you need done, that's not necessarily a big thing. I gave an example earlier today where culture may matter when it's direct reference to things that are culturally relevant, but administration operations may not. Now, if you're talking about natural hair or certain products for melanated skin, then that may be difficult for somebody who in the Philippines to adjust to. So again, it truly does matter what kind of business you're into. But on the other hand, you would know that a Philippine woman does my social media now. It started with my daughter. My daughter created a voice and she just mimicked that voice. She was really good at mimicking that voice. You would think it was a Black woman behind that, right? Oh. But what we're talking about, right? What we're talking about it's culturally relevant in the sense that we support Black businesses and we have primarily Black Kivas or VAs, but it's not something that she can't discuss. It's not like talking about natural hair care or, anything specific, right? And then the last 2 things are cost. People think because you over there that I can pay you $5 an hour, and they don't realize that maybe that was the way of doing things in past, but there is a revolution that is happening, a global workforce revolution that is happening. And post-COVID, people have began to hire overseas, globally, with competitive rates. These global VAs, for example, are in groups where they're seeing their peers getting paid $30 an hour to do the same thing that they're doing, and they just not going no more, right? And sometimes even better. They doing better work. So they're not going anymore. So you're just seeing a shift when it comes to cost. Overseas doesn't always equate to cheaper.
Yes.
Okay. And then last but not least is the internet connection and power. That's always a big thing. And I'm like, so you've never had an issue with your internet? Like never had an issue with your internet at all, right? I don't know anybody that has not. Right now we having storms. It's impacting the Caribbean. It's impacting Puerto Rico, Jamaica, Puerto Rico. But then guess what? It can also turn around and impact Houston, impact New Orleans, impact Florida. Those are all U.S. based, and then you don't. Let's not mention people that may live in rural areas.
Oh, they the first to go.
Right.
So yeah.
So when we talk about common, like, is it better to hire, just going back to your question, is it better to hire overseas, domestic or international? I really don't think that should be part of your questioning. It goes back to your expectations, what the role is, what the tasks are, what kind of skill you need, and don't limit yourself to local or domestic. Look at it from a global perspective, because there are people all around this world that have varying skill set, and you're opening yourself up to that. So I just wanted to dispel some of the common myths: the time zone, the language, the culture, the cost, they don't got internet connection and power. Those are the 5 top things I typically hear when people are like, well, this is why I want a US VA, and those particular things can still be found with US VAs.
Very true. Very true. Okay, you kind of touched on this, right? Because the success of the person that you hire all depends on you properly preparing them to take the position, right? So can you tell me about preparing them with processes and systems? How does that play a part in the success?
I did touch on that. That really does go back to being very clear on what your expectations are of them and what's required of them to do the job, and making sure that if any training is needed, you are able to do that. So I'm big on having the resource, being clear, like I said, on expectations, roles, communication, deadlines, all of that. Number 2, having the resources that an individual needs at their fingertips to do their job. I always tell people, like, do you have what I call a knowledge center, or a place where people can pull from or access to get the information they need to do their job or to maneuver in your business? Or are you making stuff up on the go? Because if you're making stuff up on the go, be prepared for people to be lost.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So this is a real short and easy answer. The more prepared you are for a person to do their job well, the more likely they are to do their job well. If you are creating things on the fly, then you're going to have to extend grace to an individual that is coming in, because they just catching what you're putting out as you're putting it out.
Yep. Right?
So this is why it is so important to document your processes, be clear about expectations in the beginning, have metrics and measurement. You can't say, oh, well, they're not doing a bad job. Well, how do you know? I mean, they're doing a bad job. How do you know? How do you know that they're doing a bad job? Did you say, this is what I expect of you? And did you in the back end and or to them say, this is how I'm going to measure that success? These are the specific results that I am looking for. Most times people don't do that. They just, oh, you answered this email wrong. You're not doing a good job.
Okay.
And you know that, like, people, we get, sometimes entrepreneurs get into their feelings, they project because of everything, all the chaos that is happening around them. So if you feel chaotic, you best believe the people that's working for you also are feeling that chaos. So I can't say it enough. Organize your documents and organize your systems and your processes. as you create them. It's a living, breathing document. Things change all the time.
All the time.
So it isn't going to be like, this is what it is and it's set in stone. But if somebody has something to reference, you really cut down confusion, and people are very clear about what they need to do and what's expected of them.
I love that. So we got them hired, right? We set them up for success with processes and stuff. How do we manage these people?
Ooh. So
especially a remote team, because this whole theme is it's virtual, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to kind of walk across to somebody's office and see, do they at least look like they working, right?
What you saying, look like
they working.
Back in the day, when I used to work with people, like it was many times that I looked like.
Exactly.
I just am very, I'm very, like I can get my work done in 2 hours. Some that takes somebody else 5 hours, I could do it for 2 hours. And those other 3 hours, I'm doing what I want to do. It just looked like it's a psychology that, oh, this person is here, they're at work, they're in their seat, they're doing their work. That's BS. I know a lot of people that were not working. Okay. And I know many more people that are far more productive working remotely. So I think that it's kind of the same rules that apply, but I like to have the 5 C's. Communication. Okay. Communication is huge. Connection, celebration, certification, and consistency. Okay. So when we talk about communication, in ours, some of the tools and that we use is Slack. That's really big for us, and staying connected with one another. And that's kind of like, because we are remote based and we're all over the world, this is our office. So people come in and they check in and good morning and share memes and share hacks and things like that. We communicate there. We have an open channel where people can come and hit me up. I have community managers where you can go directly to them and ask them for things. I have membership managers. I have systems and processes in place where the people, the VAs and the clients are able to actively communicate with who they need to communicate. And this as a person that is using the service, it's like, you got people there. It's open to you. Account managers, community managers, the CEO. I believe in an open line of communication and transparency. So we have a number of tools that we use to make that available to people, and also to give us feedback on how we can do things better. And, and that has helped with retaining our talent, right? Because people feel like they're a part of. It's not a disconnection. We don't go dark and then it's like, okay, now a meeting. Go dark and now a meeting. No. So that's also big. I just talked about like Slack and how like people feeling connected, but some of the other things that we do, it's not all about work. We do huddles, where we literally are doing paint and sips together virtually, right? Like we're doing that together, or I've had it where we do mastermind sessions and it could be trainings on very specific things that they need to know to be more effective in their job, or it could be something like cryptocurrency so that they can increase their individual wealth, or let's do Pilates. I'm really big into that. So let's do Pilates at 5 a.m. together. That's a way to connect with your team. People know that you care about them and they're more than just workhorses, right? Establishing a culture of connection is important, again, for retention. Celebration. We celebrate everything. High dopamine levels. Everybody turns all the time. You understand? We high off dopamine. We celebrating birthdays. We celebrating anniversaries. We celebrate people getting new assignments. We celebrate everything. And you can see that inside of our Slack channels and our newsletters, all of that. So celebration is big for us. Certification. And I use that certification loosely because I'm not, I'm not a university, but we have our own internal university where we do continuing education. And we also have a toolbox of trainings that our Kivas have access to. So making sure that their continuing education is there. That's what I mean by certification and consistency.
Yeah.
Not doing stuff just for a little bit, but continuously doing it. Most of our hiring and also most of our recruiting of clients come from word of mouth. And that, I believe, is because we have a consistent culture that is centered around those things I just mentioned.
I love that. I love all of that. So I heard you mention some tools, right? And so I know you said Slack as a communication tool. You have any more of those people management tools you want to share?
Well, I think everybody know about G Suite, and I'm not talking about just Gmail. I'm talking about G Suite for business, right? So that is kind of like the center of kind of, like our file sharing, and it has security set up and our personalized emails, and you can do a quick chat. You can do video calls, in addition to Zoom, but these are things internally that you could do. You can have phone numbers set up, and a lot of people don't use Gmail, and I'm talking about on the business side, not just a Google phone number, but on the business side, you can literally have it where it's equivalent to other VoIP systems like Grasshopper and Ring Central. So it really becomes kind of this command center around the way that you do business with your teams internally, and keeps everything kind of structured and organized. So G Suite is the number one tool that I talk about. Slack is huge too, because it has the effectiveness of real-time quick communication, like text messaging.
Yep.
I love it. And you can set up different channels for very specific things. Like we have channels for our clients. We have channels for book club. We have different channels that for different things, which I love that. And then of course you have your main channel where all the action is happening. And then I absolutely love Deal, DEEL, for payroll. Okay. Right. And it's big, especially if you're doing payroll from a global perspective. And for small businesses, a lot of times we're working with contractors more than we are employees to start. So Deal is like the future. They're almost like an ADP, but their specialization, ADP and Paychecks, for example, are very much about the employee, whereas Deal handles employees, but they're very much about the contractor, because that's the future of the workforce. And in here, they make sure that you're up on compliance, which is huge, depending on where you're doing business, anywhere in the world. So they're in compliance. They allow individuals to receive their money. However, you can receive it in crypto if you want to. You can get a little card and get it on there. It can go direct to your account. So people have options. They do background checks right through there. Yeah, so everything happens through Deal. And I love it. I mean, honorable mention to, if you're smaller, because I use these, Payoneer and Rippling are great. Payoneer for global is really good. And usually your contractor picks up those fees, but you have a choice. You could pick them up or your contractor pick them up. And then Rippling is really good for management. But because of how big we have gotten, I like to use Deal because of the background check, making sure everybody's up to compliance, and giving people an option of how they receive their money. ClickUp is a must. Some people use Trello, some people use Airtable, but we use ClickUp to manage our internal team and all the projects and things that are going on. It's seamless communication there around deadlines. No one's assuming anything. So ClickUp is my project management tool of choice. And then I love any tool that has seamless integration with other tools that you use. So it just like Slack integrates with Google, ClickUp integrates with Google, right? As well as other tools that I may use. And then last but not least, one of my favorites is Video Ask for recruitment, initial recruitment, that's huge when you are recruiting on an ongoing basis. Or if you don't have a lot of time, you can actually set up an interview, and it can be that initial is a virtual interview with someone, and they answer these questions, and you get a good idea of their personality before you even meet with them. And it's also great for testimonials from individuals. So those are my favorite: G Suite, Slack, Deal, ClickUp, and Video Ask.
I love it. You've given so much information. You've given so much. I'm gonna ask one more thing, right? Because when we're talking about growth and scale, like one of the biggest goals most small business owners have is to take themselves out of the day-to-day operations, right? But, you know, doing things the way that you've always done them gets you what you always had, right? So what are the mindset shifts that our small business owners need to start making so that they can work towards removing themselves out of the day-to-day operations of their business?
The first thing is, and we talked about this, systems and processes, right? Like that's number one. It is no way that you'll be able to effectively scale or even have a team that is working efficiently if you do not have processes in place. So, you know, having standard operating procedures is critical. It all starts there. When I started Key, I started with just me. And as I began to grow, you know, I had to put certain things in place. So I knew I had to put a recruitment thing and, you know, something around recruitment in place. Okay, once I bring these individuals in, I have to have some sort of way of managing our VAs that are here and making sure that we're connected and we're clear on, you know, culture, and we're, you know, just aligned. And then from there, it's how do I stay connected with my clients, right? So I have to have like business development. How are we making money? And then of course there is the marketing aspect of things. How are we remaining relevant and visible? So these are some, and then of course you have your operations, the executive level, who's keeping all this stuff in order. So I knew very early, even though I handled a lot of that stuff in the beginning, because that's how it is, I organized it based on what my company needs. Like I just said, okay, recruitment, community management, business development, marketing, operations, right? And then I started, what do I do for recruitment? What do I do for this? And as we continue to grow and my skills were needed elsewhere, I began plugging people in that had expertise in those areas, because the recruitment is not my expertise. I actually just am good. I'm a people person. So I operated initially off intuition, but very quickly I put someone in that understood human resources and compliance.
Yes.
And I said, well, this is what I do. This is important for me to keep in place, but I want you to take this and evolve it based on what it is that you know, right? So I began slowly replacing myself. Okay, recruitment is off my back. Okay, community managers. Okay, our team is now at 20. I need someone who can pay close attention to our Kivas, their needs, and give them, I want somebody that has a coaching background, right? Because things can be frustrating, and putting them in the role of community manager and using my framework and my foundation, but again, taking their expertise and growing with it. And it was the same thing for every, you know, rinse, repeat for everything. And before I knew it, I wasn't a VA anymore. I removed myself from that. That was the first thing. I didn't have to do any of those other things anymore. I completely removed myself from that. And now I'm managing the overall teams, right, of things. And now I'm at a different level where it's like, okay, now I can bring in an operations manager to manage the teams and remove myself from that, so that now I can exclusively work as a CEO and work on the expansion and the growth and the visibility and the, you know, all those other things.
The vision, baby, the vision.
Yep, the vision required for me to get to that 5-year exit strategy. which a lot of us don't have, but I do. So in 5 years, I want to exit. This is where I want to be. So the company now has systems and processes that are proven to work. They have professional people inside, people that have been with me for a long time, that know them and can also provide expertise and say, oh, this is a whole, let's expand it in this way. So the mindset shift is understanding that you can't do it all.
Huh.
To relinquish control.
First of all, stop talking to me like that.
You can't do it all. You have to relinquish control. And a lot of times we be like, this is my baby. This is my baby. Well, yeah, stop looking at your business like your baby.
Yep, number one.
You know what I mean? Because nobody wants to give away their baby.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you put it like that, because it could be your baby, but guess what? Your baby have teachers, your baby have grandparents, your baby still have other people that do stuff. And guess what? The person that say that's my baby and they the one doing it, that's the overwhelmed mama, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, right?
That's the overwhelmed mama, and that's the mama with the kid that never leave, or the kid that's extremely rebellious.
Yep. Either way, it ain't working out being mama and they the only person.
So it's you know, it's like, okay, yeah, be that mother that is raising an independent child that understands that at some point, they're gonna have to stand on their own 2 feet.
Exactly.
Right? If you are looking at it like your baby. I my first time around, I'm like, baby, I was like, well, my baby got to 7 years old and wasn't doing Now I'm like, my baby a genius now.
Yes, out here doing it independently.
Yeah, so I think that the mindset shift is the biggest shift is being prepared to relinquish control and understanding that everybody ain't you and ain't gonna do business like you, and appreciating the expertise and talents that they do bring to the table, valuing who the people are, being equitable in what you pay the people. Mm-hmm. You understand? Because if you pay them, they stay. And they bring more business. They bring more business to you. So I think, you know, when it's all said and done, you're just gonna have to get out your own way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to get out your own way.
Well, thank you so much, man. Look, this was more than I knew this was gonna be the jam, but this was more than the jam. It was the bread, the butter, all of it. Not just the jam. So I appreciate you so much. Where can the people find you? Because they definitely need to stay connected to you.
Yes, so you can find me at Key Virtual Supports, Key Support Solutions. And that Key is spelled Q-U-I, right? Q-U-I. And it's a derivative from my name. My name is Tequila. So Q-U-I, real simple. So Key Support Solutions with an S at the end.com. You can go there. There's a phone number there. There is also, if you want to set up a discovery call with one of our talent specialists, you can do so, and they will walk you through the process of getting started and hiring one of our great VAs. Our VAs are skilled in handling administration, operations, sales, customer service, and some social media. We're not a marketing agency, so when I say social media, I really mean managing the strategy that you already have in place. We can do all of that back office support, and we have them from the intern level to the executive managerial level. And when I say intern level, just realize if you're a person, you don't have a huge budget, but you may have a little bit more time to cultivate that talent, then that's the intern level. But most businesses that we deal with,
we ain't got time.
They ain't got time to cultivate, and they're usually coming in and getting people at the intermediate level. So we can help you at all levels. And we definitely are going to walk you through the process, and anything that you are not aware of or you need a little bit of education, our talent specialists are going to go ahead and get that right.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, thank you again, Ms. Tequila. I love it. I love the name of your business being named after you in some way. And I love that the VAs are even kind of named after you, because you call them Kivas, as in key VAs, Kivas. I love that. I love it, love it, love it. almost as much as I love you. So thank you so much for coming and spending this time with us and giving us so much information so that we can get our teams together, especially when we're hiring virtual assistants, which is literally just getting assistants virtually, people, okay? Doesn't mean low level stuff. So thank you so much, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.